Hey, everybody. Really excited to speak with Lamont this week, who just broke into tech sales at a fast growing fintech company. Lamont, a lot to break down, really cool background that I'm sure we'll get into. And maybe as a starting point, paint a picture of what your background was and what ultimately got you looking at tech sales in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've actually been in various sales roles, not anything B2B yet, since ever since I turned 18, really. So I started out at GNC, the supplement retailer there. I kind of worked up the ranks there from when I was 18. At one point, ended up managing, six locations at once. After that, I got into investment real estate, so a little bit of a different kind of process there. Um, Finally, before I, made my way into this role, the role I just finished up would be a different B2C sales role that's remote. We're actually contracted by different workout companies, different supplement companies, and their customers are put through an upsell process by us to basically sell them different programs and supplements. So that's kind of what my work history looks like.
Nice. Yeah. And I'm curious too, maybe what kind of piqued that interest in tech sales and then what ultimately led up to you investing in something like higher levels.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in all my different roles, there's been, pros and cons to those, but I always kind of lacked that sort of fulfillment and really, you know, feeling like I'm growing towards something. And that's what's really attractive, I think, for me in tech sales is that, there's really no limit there in terms of where your career can go. So I definitely look forward to that. That was, definitely the main thing for me. In terms of higher levels, man, honestly, it started with your guys' YouTube videos. I went through most of those, as well as looking at some other people's YouTube videos as well. But in terms of courses, really yours was the only one I even considered. Really, just knowing that you guys are in the position that so many of us want to get into, and having that information available to us, I think was a no brainer to me. So yeah, that's pretty much why. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm curious too. You do have some sales experience. You are self-pacing and taking in all of the content that's out there. I know there's way more than when I broke into the industry myself. How do you, I guess, looking back on your higher levels experience, what do you think was maybe some of the things that the platform gave you that you wouldn't have otherwise had?
Yeah, so definitely being prepared for, the entire process is just so much different than what I've, seen in previous jobs, throughout my life. So really, if it weren't for that, I would have no clue what to even expect. But for me, I think my biggest benefits from the course really was just knowing the correct questions to ask and knowing the correct way to answer the questions was huge for me, as well as getting ready for the mock call. That was definitely something that was a little nerve wracking. Even though I have experience doing cold calls in my roles in the past, this is just kind of a whole new thing for me. So those were definitely the things that I think helped me out the most.
Yeah, it's awesome. And maybe for someone on the outside looking into that's maybe prepping for their own interviews, couple of questions here. I'd love to tap into, we work with people at all stages of life. I actually had a call this morning with someone that has a PhD and is almost too qualified on paper. I'm curious, obviously a lot of people without college degrees are looking at tech sales. I speak with some that are worried that, oh, I don't have a degree. Did you encounter any resistance not having one? And how do you think you overcame that if there was any resistance whatsoever?
So personally, I actually didn't encounter any resistance at all. Nobody even asked me about like if I went to college or anything like that. I just obviously didn't have anything like that on my resume. So, with that being said, though, I did only apply to the company that I got an offer from. So it definitely could have been different, at other companies. But, I actually did not have any resistance for that. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And maybe picking apart, this interview process, you mentioned previously that it was maybe a little bit different than some of the cold calls you had done before, or just some of the overall sales motions. What are maybe one, two, or three major things, or you learned throughout this process that you would give to someone watching that's trying to break in?
So, I mean, for me, I think after the call was over, I realized that the words coming out of my mouth weren't necessarily that important. But what was more important was, how the words were coming out, as well as applying the feedback that was given to me. They're not expecting you to be an expert at all in these interviews, but they do want to see how you react to feedback, how you react to an objection, how you handle yourself, and what your phone presence is like. So that definitely was probably the main thing I noticed there. Other than that, I mean, really just the same thing that helped me with success in past roles. I think definitely helped a lot with this, as well as having conviction in why you want to work in tech sales, why you want to, work at whatever company you're applying to. Just having that conviction behind what you're saying, I think definitely can help set you apart from other people. So.
Nice. Did you have any points along the way that you feel like you stumbled or were like potential risk of losing, or it was pretty smooth overall?
Um, so I mean, to be honest, I got a little bit nervous. We actually, I'm in the Tampa area, so we had some storms recently, and that actually hindered the interview process. And I wasn't sure if there was things I should be doing, in between those long gaps between interviews in terms of reaching out to stay top of mind or anything like that. It ended up obviously just being an overreaction. I will say though, you know, the way that the interview process was structured here, the later round interviews were more of like the vibe checks. So I actually had my mock call pretty early. I would definitely say, once you're getting to those more vibe check calls, not to let your guard down. That was something I, felt like maybe I didn't quite prepare as well for those as the previous rounds. And, that could have definitely backfired.
Yeah, that's good advice. It is more informal, but yeah, it's easy to get caught, and you say one thing and it catches somebody the wrong way if you're not
Right.
careful. So been there for sure. But no, this is a great conversation, man. Obviously, super excited for you. I guess maybe in closing, if there's any advice you give to someone out there, whether it's to your younger self or just in general, if you do anything different. But otherwise, great conversation.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, really doing your research for these companies is going to be pretty important. I think, like, just knowing that you're not just applying to the company just because they're hiring, why you specifically want to work there. Um, but other than that, the only thing I would have done differently is I definitely would have applied to more companies than I did. My thought process was really just that this was my top choice, so I wanted to give everything to this first before I started applying everywhere. But looking back on it, I definitely wish I would have had more reps in from other companies so that I knew more what to expect instead of interacting for the first time with these different processes. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, it definitely worked out. So we're obviously excited to see it. And yeah, congrats again, Lamont. Really great company. Really excited to see where it takes you. And unless there's anything else, really appreciate the time.
No, thank you so much. And thank you for having me as well.